Welcome to the You Are a Force podcast channel, your go-to space for real stories, fearless dreams, and unstoppable women rewriting the rules. And the force behind this podcast. Here is your host, Binoli, Botadara.
Hi everyone, welcome to You Are a Force, where we celebrate women who don't just wear steel heels, but they actually walk into them all the way on the top, breaking the glass ceilings and also building the skyscraper above them. I'm your host Binoli Botadara, and it's my absolute honor to have a guest who is a true force of nature in every sense of the word. She's been awarded an OBE in 2018 by King Charles for her outstanding contribution in women, diversity and economy. In 2024, she received an honorary Doctorate of Science from Warwick University. She's a best-selling author. She's a founder of We Are the City and We Are Tech Women, two of UK's most influential platforms for women in business and tech. Oh my God. She is recipient of 26 major industry accolades. The list can go on. She is one of the most powerful women as Financial News recognized her as the top 100 rising stars, and also International Alliances of Women have actually given her an accolade of top 100 global women. So from her humble beginnings on an East London council estate to becoming global champion of gender equality, her story is nothing short of extraordinary, and it is my absolute honor to welcome someone who has faced obstacles, but she has transformed them into opportunities. So I can't wait to deep dive how she has done it, what she has done it. So let's welcome none other than Vanessa Vallely OBE. Vanessa, thank you so much for being on You Are a Force.
Oh, Binoli, such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. I have been actually stalking you since a long time, but this feels surreal to actually, sit across you virtually though. But it's really fascinating when when I look at women like you, it give me so much of inspiration, and I just want to be like that sponge who takes away all the best advice and information what you have to give. So I can't wait to get
Before we start, Binoli, it's women like you that want to elevate women's stories, that we should be applauding, because you are as much part of that ecosystem of women supporting women. So my thanks to you before we even begin.
Oh, thank you so much. You made my day. I'm gonna sleep like a baby tonight. So, Vanessa, I want to start with your story because it is like literally rags to riches journey. And from the council flats in East London to literally having a corner office, I think when you must be growing up, I don't know, but I mean, this what you've achieved must have felt like galaxies away. So looking back, I want to pick up that how was it to grow up in where you grew up, and how did you start spotting opportunities, and what was a turning point in your career which actually uh, you know made you feel that you can do something really larger than people around you would have done? And did you think that you were too ambitious compared to the people around you, or were you like told not to be super ambitious?
Oh, there's a lot there, right? There's a lot of questions there, so I'll do my best. So, as you said, I grew up in East London on a council estate. It was it was rich in a lot of way in terms of the diversity of people that I grew up with, the love for my immediate family, but in terms of opportunity, not that much. We were kind of more told things that we wouldn't achieve as opposed to things that we would achieve. So I left school at 16. I didn't do very well academically. There were things going on in my family life that prevented me from being on school on time. When I was in school, I was fairly disruptive. And I think we'll get onto a question as to why that was a little bit later on. But so it was a fantastic place to grow up, but there wasn't much opportunity.
Mm,
I think there was a pre-written story, perhaps, from
mm,
kids that came from my background, that grew up in the kind of high-rise blocks that I grew up in. Um, So, and I just refused to be part of that predefined story. So there was just me and my mum. My mum and dad split up when I was very, very young, but he's always been part of my life. They just got married too young. It was just one of those things.
Yeah.
But so she worked a day job and 4 cleaning jobs of a night. And from the age of 4, 5 or 6, I used to go and help her clean big offices, some of which I ended up working in when I was much later in my career, which there is an irony to that. But money was tight. But she kind of, I had the kind of, what have you got to lose kind of thing. And I think that goes on to answer some of your other questions around what have you got to lose. So I had dreams of working in the city, earning a big salary, buying a house eventually for my mum, so she didn't have to work so hard. So that was the kind of driver, if you like. And then I decided to go up to the City of London. I could see the city from my bedroom window and try and get a job. And everyone said no, not a great academic record, a very wide Cockney accent, East End accent, probably wasn't, turning up in the mold that they would expect to work in bank. That's kind of where I wanted to work. Anyway, eventually one bank gave me a job. I messed it up 6 months later through my own kind of behaviour, calling out the bad behaviour of someone else, but in a way that I could have done it much more tactfully and diplomatically. And you learn lessons, right? You're young.
Yes, of
And the
course.
thing is with that is there was no one there to mentor or guide me, which has always made me so mindful about young people that come into organisations because they don't know how the rules are played or the rules of the game, so to speak. So I left that job and I went off. And again, it's always been every single job that I ever went to, I'm like, what have I got to lose?
Of course.
Because when you start with little, everything else in life is a bonus. So every time I got an interview, it's like, wow, that's a bonus. Every time I got a job, it's like, that's a bonus. They're paying me too. That's a bonus, So it was like, I suppose it was the constant gratification of those little bonuses and having things that I thought I'd never get. Not a game, so to speak, but like, can I actually do that? But also, can I make sure that I do it and I do it to the best of my ability? My mum's always brought me up, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. And that comes from, cleaning a window right the way through to kind of, what you do in your career. So I had a very long kind of tenure in the city of around 25. It might have been a little bit more than that. But my strategy originally was very much around early on jumping lots of different jobs around the 2 year mark to learn things, and then go to the next job, see what I've learned, learn new things at that job, and then jump again. And I did that a number of different times, different parts of the career. I started off teaching computer software. That was one of the jobs. God, I think I've had 28 different roles in technology over the years, but ended up kind of slowed down a little bit when I wanted to progress more in one organisation. I didn't jump around as lot. And also lucky enough to work under some great bosses that gave me lots of internal mobility. So they would put me into different departments, go fix this, come back and do that, try this. And I always would step up to the plate because again, in that mindset of what have I got to lose, right? I mean, I'm going to do it and do it really, really well, or I'm going to fail miserably. And in which case I've learned a load of lessons. You have to get slightly more strategic as you get more senior in your career around how you look at things, because then you start to build up an infrastructure behind you of, paying bills and mortgages to pay. So yeah, I do have stuff to lose if this goes wrong. So that attitude probably thinned out a little bit, the more senior I become. But so that's kind of the journey that I went on. But it was always, you talk about ambition. I think I wanted to change the story for me and my mum, and that equated to ambition, I suppose, for a better life, for a better job, for better financial security. And then I got into the workplace, and it was very much at that time, like ambition was a bit of a dirty word for women, because if you was ambitious, there was this kind of stereotype. I can only think of the programs that might have been on telly at the time of these big shoulder padded women, that were a little bit, if I can use the term, ball breaking and a little bit fierce. And it wasn't a positive stereotype.
Yes. Imitating alpha men, basically.
Yeah, it's completely different. But so I was ambitious, vocally ambitious, I think, in spaces where I knew I could be, but less vocal in places where I thought I would be judged because of it.
Yes.
think that was the way that I would explain it. But inside me, I had this deep-seated root that I would be successful in the city, and that would be my entire career. So obviously that come 40 years old when I decided I didn't want it anymore, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, when I was like, I've got a higher purpose. There's things that I do at the moment that I'm doing off the side of my desk that absolutely fill my soul with joy and passion. And actually, I want to do more of that, which again was a big old decision, right? Because
Of
I'd
course.
gone on this journey of everything I'd ever wanted. Thought that I'd be sitting in some sort of chair for years, that's where I'd collect my pension and stuff like that. And yeah, it didn't end up that way. So I hope that's answered everything that was in that first
It
question.
did, it did, and I was just thinking that, the way you were explaining, I was actually, visualizing your journey alongside, and I mean, more power to you. I mean, when you were talking about your mom, your eyes just lit up, and I think I'm sure that she must be super proud of you. But I also figured that, you have a growth mindset. I think you were just open to doing anything and everything which came along.
Yeah.
You were not really, like you said, what do you have to lose? But also at the same time, I think you were very agile in actually trying different things. A lot of people don't do that, and perhaps that's the reason they do not get out of their comfort zone most of the times.
Yeah. I think that
And
probably stems from my background, though. I think,
yes.
I look at lots of quite a few girls that I grew up with. Some of them are on the televisions a couple of times a week, one in particular that I can think of. Another
Uh-huh.
one's a very successful film director. I think when you come from that kind of background where you just grab every single opportunity,
Mm.
see where it leads, because it isn't like it's mapped out for you. You go to
Yeah.
school, you go to college, you go to university, you're going to get a good job, you'll do this, you'll do that. I think probably a lot of people where I come from, we don't know where we're going.
Mm.
So we're just going to literally follow the pathway
Yeah.
and do everything that we can along the way. And I think, I do a lot of the kind of stuff I'm really passionate about, and I try to support a lot, is around social mobility from kids that came from similar backgrounds like me, because there's so much skill there, skill, passion, entrepreneurial mindset, growth mindset.
Yes.
That it's really important that we give that opportunity to people that are like that, right? And also they've all got their own inspiring stories.
Mm.
I think that's where it
Yeah.
comes from.
I love that. I love that. It's so amazing. And you actually launched Be Other City while you were working in finance in the
Oh,
city
I
in
did was.
2008, when diversity wasn't even a buzzword, which it is today.
Yeah.
So most of the people would have been terrified to take something more because you already were doing a lot of things and hustling around. And also when you said that, every 2 years you actually jumped around from one place to another to like learn and move, which is again very very different from most women, because most women average tenure in their work is much
Yeah.
longer than the men. So what did that leap feel like? Why did you start that? And what was the motive behind doing something what you did with the We Are the City?
I think I'd spent quite a lot of time in sitting around in meeting rooms that were full of men. Invariably, I was the only woman there. Originally, from a support perspective, sometimes, in that chief of staff kind of role that
Yes.
oiled the wheels, that kind of made things happen. But I
Or the
just,
EAs
yeah,
roles even. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But,
Yeah.
when I think like business management roles, I look at EAs and I'm like, they're already business managers, right?
Yeah.
And chief
Yeah.
of staff is an evolution of that. But kind of looking around the room at all these men, and they were great guys, but I was just
Mm.
thinking, why is there not more women in the room? Why? How do the women that work for me get in this room? What needs to be done?
Mm.
And also, I think I was feeling quite lonely at the time. Like my network was mostly men. I didn't have that too many kind of women friends or sponsors or mentors or anything like that. And I just said to my husband, where is a network for me? Where is somewhere where I can go read stories of incredible women, find out where there's events where I can go to build my network, learn new things from other people. Where are, these networks, these events, these, as I say, this storytelling? And there was nothing. There was something that was kind of akin to it, but for the guys. You could
Yeah.
say it was for women and men, but it was more kind of male content. And I just said, I wish I had something like that, a website that I could go to, or and we was on a short break on holiday, and we kind of talked about this idea, and over a few glasses of wine, and by the end of it, it was going to solve world peace. And then we come back, and I went back into my day job, and I kind of forgot about it a little bit. And then he sent me an email, and he said, "I've bought you a present. I've bought you a website domain. Why don't we do something about it?"
Oh,
So that was where it began. So he bought me a website domain, which was actually the name of another women's network. So I couldn't use that, but the sentiment was there. So we soon kind of come across We Are the City, because it's not just about men, it's about women as well. We're the city
yeah.
too. And again, it started as that. And then just really looking at what was going on for women and putting it on that website, which was nothing at the time.
Mm,
And then 2010 came along. Lord Davis did his report about more women on boards. And I think that was the tipping point
sure.
where we saw all these kind of women's networks. There were women's networks around when I launched, but they were entrepreneurial, or
Yeah.
they were quite bureaucratic in terms of you had to know someone to join. They were more focused on senior women, whereas I wanted to focus on women in the middle, where it gets really sticky, where
Mm,
you're not quite earning what you need to be earning. Perhaps
yeah.
you've got caring responsibilities or children, or you're stuck behind a boss that's not going anywhere in an old-fashioned hierarchical job system. I'm like, okay, how do I get to those women and go, come on, like what skills do you need? How do we hang in here together? Because how do we push you to the top and clear some of those pathways? So that's what it was. And I run that off the side of my desk for about 7 years, just building up this website. And then obviously 2010 come, we had loads more content, loads more women's networks, loads more I'm okay to tell my story. And that's kind of where We Are the City began. And then after about 7 years, I was like, I love this. I love everything about it. And I know it's not going to pay me what I earn in banking, and that's going to result in some home changes. Um, but I'm going to do it anyway. So the plan was, I think at the end of my book, Heels of Steel, I talk about taking a sabbatical for a year to see how that panned out. And obviously I never went back. Sorry, spoiler alert. But I at that particular moment, when I left, the plan was I would build a suite of services around We Are the City that helps attract, retain, and develop women for corporates, keeping the website and as much as we can do for free,
Mm,
women, not putting the website behind any paywall or anything, which is still not to this day, almost 17 years later, however long
mm.
it is. And that's kind of where it all began. But it started off as a hobby, a side desk hobby. I never ever thought it would be my career. I never thought I'd leave my beloved banking for it. I was lucky enough to build out a separate arm of We Are the City and We Are Tech Women. So it took me back to my technology roots. And we've done a lot of stuff. I can't even tell you,
Wow. More
probably
power to you. More power
300
to you.
events,
And I
loads
totally
of stuff.
I totally resonate with a lot of things what you were saying because I work in the city and still things are not very different. I used to work in India in financial services. I used to be one woman in the room of 100 men. And initially, I would try and shrink, I would try and hide, I would not say much. When I came to London and I started working, maybe I'm one of the 10 women in the room of 100. And I
Sharing.
was telling this to my boss that why do I only have middle-aged blokes everywhere, whichever meetings I go in, and there are no women networking event I've been to in asset management. And he goes, why are you not doing one? And I said, can I do it? He said, yeah, go for it. And I literally organized something for all my clients, which are wealth managers, and which is we called as Women in Investment Trust.
Love that.
And I had 68 women joining, and it was basically there was nothing male bashing. It was more about women coming
No,
together, and I had some board members I moderated, and till date, whenever I meet anybody, everyone says that, oh my God, what an event. And after that, a lot of other people also got, inspired and started doing it. So, I mean, it just, and honestly, like you, it just makes my soul very happy. And that's when I thought of You Are a Force, I was like, I'm not gonna have men on this podcast because they have enough platform, and I want to amplify women's voices and these unheard stories of women. So I totally relate to that, and I want to pick up on Heel of Steel, which is your
yeah,
best-selling book, since you mentioned it, and so in that you wrote that success is not about being the smartest in the room, but it's about being the brave enough to take up the space in it and finding people who are smarter than you around you. So
Yeah.
it's often it's bravery and not the brilliance that actually can get you a seat on the table.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to pick your brain that what is the biggest mistake women still do to actually not able to speak up, or anything where you think that there is still an unconscious bias from even the employer's point of view or from women's point of view, that they don't really jump with 2 feet because they're not brave enough, or
Well, first, I mean, I don't want to generalize for all women, right? Because everybody's kind of different. What I've seen in teams of women that I've run is the women don't speak up enough. You know, as I say, maybe subject to their environment, they seem to shrink back a little bit more.
yeah.
Whereas these women have got great ideas, great thoughts around innovation, great thoughts around reworking process and how we can do things a different way. So that would be, you know, to be a little bit braver in those environments. You say when, and it is daunting. I've been in rooms with predominantly all men, and I'm like, where's my space in here? Or can I get a word in edgeways? Because
Yeah.
they're all talking over the top of each other.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that there's two prongs here. That I think it is about finding your own bravery and knowing your worth and knowing the fact you do know your stuff. Don't doubt yourself, you know, and to be able to vocalize those ideas and maybe solicit them before with a couple of other people so that when you walk in a room, you've already articulated that idea. You know, you've got people in the room that are going to back you anyway. So you can do some bits if you lack confidence in that area. But I think having finding that kind of that inner strength to say what it is that you want to say in the meeting. We're all there to add value, to add
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
I think the second prong of that is on leadership, and that is to make sure that different voices are heard. Because you've probably been in meetings where the same people, the same ideas, it's he who shouts loudest. Whereas when I think what is true sponsorship is when a leader will say, hold on a minute, what's your thoughts on that? Or what was you trying to say earlier on? Oh, actually, that idea that you've just said, so and so, so and so, wasn't that what you was alluding to earlier on? So there's a different way when leaders champion
Yeah.
not just women, quieter voices, you know, in the room, people that are not naturally extrovert, you know, for
Yeah.
however, whether it's the way they are, whether it's cultural, you know, whatever it is, but just a lead, it's a leader's job, I think, to find the voices in the room and to pull it out of everyone, how
Yeah.
they feel comfortable. So I think it's about that. I would like to see more women's voices in those environments,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
leaders clearing space to hear from everyone in that room rather
I
than the usual suspects.
I really hope that the leaders and men would listen to this and they can actually pick up, because I genuinely feel that, most of the leaders don't really do it in the meetings. And like you said, it's very cultural as well. Like when I came to the
Yeah.
city, in India, when the boss is speaking, you don't cut him or her and speak. Or when the seniors are there, you don't really do have an opinion, or you don't showcase as though you are the one who has made the presentation and done everything. But when you come to London, people do speak up, right? No matter what level you're in. I mean, if you are in the
Survival of the fittest sometimes.
yes, yes. So, but it took me a while to like adopt to that, and most of the times people used to think that I don't have an opinion or no, I'm not smart enough. But then I had to actually push myself to actually change
Yeah.
that, or unlearn of years of learning or Indianized way of working, to actually make myself more, I mean, seen or heard. So yeah, there are multiple.
Again, it's down to leaders to pull that out. You know,
Yes.
a leader that has, you know, perhaps had that experience or whatever. It's different. You and I have spoke about before. I went backwards and forwards, worked in India, did awards and conferences in India.
Yeah.
So I had many interactions with different women from those
Yeah.
different backgrounds, not just in India, across Europe. So
Correct.
it's different for every person. So I think a leader's got to look at who they've got in the room.
Yeah.
There's different perspectives, which is the richness of the ideas that we create, but
Absolutely.
also people's cultural backgrounds that they may not necessarily be the loudest. They may not want to take the glory, like, you know, some people from other parts of the world
Yeah.
who were kind
Yeah.
of brought up in kindergarten to talk about their successes and shout about how wonderful they are. So everybody's different. So I think, you know, the job of the leader is to scan the horizon and go, who am I not hearing from? Why am I not hearing from them?
Wow, I love that. And I'm also going to imbibe that into my way of dealing with people. But I want to pick like today's hot topic, which is AI, and which
Yeah.
is literally that's where you are also in the scheme of things. So I want to understand that this digital transformation, which we're talking about with the AI integration into anything and everything, do you think that it is going to help more in terms of gender equality because it eliminates the gender bias or implicit biases we have, or we are having the risk of coding or automating the old biases faster?
Well, we know when we look at some of the large language models and you go through ChatGPT, if you ask it some questions, you've only got to test it to know that there's bias built into there, right? Anything that is, where it sources its information, there's going to be elements of bias, right? It's based on what someone's written or what's out there already. So it's really difficult to say, of course it will impact women. We know that, for example, I think there was a network, an EA and PA network, and how many EAs and PAs have kind of, lost their jobs, or because people are relying on AI a lot more as a productivity tool. So I think with AI, I think there's two things here, right? So first of all, I think we need more women in AI. That's 100%. I
Yes.
think also at the same starting line with men, we've got an opportunity to get this right. We're both here. Men don't know more about AI than women do at the
Absolutely.
moment, right?
Absolutely.
It's not new
It's the
because
same
it's been
starting
around for
point.
years, but it's new for all of us in terms of how we implement them within systems, within processes, what this means for everyone. We're on the same starting line. I think companies, whatever anyone's doing, again, has to look around that room and go, have we got everyone here that can give us an opinion on this isn't going to work for me? Have we thought about that? Have we found, which generally only sometimes comes from people's lived experience or their experience in the workplace. So I think it's an exciting time for AI. At the moment, there's there's a wonderful lady called Laura Bates that's just written a book. I think it's AI in the era of sexism or something like that. And she
Okay.
talks a lot about AI and its impact on women because obviously there's lots of negative stuff
Yes.
around AI, that misogyny online, and the things where AI is not is not helping us as women
Yeah.
whatsoever. But as I say, on the positive side, I think if we can try and get one step ahead and make
Yeah.
sure there's enough women in AI and that we're part of those conversations, hopefully we'll go on to build things that we can't eradicate bias, right? It's going to be there,
No.
but we can definitely interject and change what that looks like for the future.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really exciting time.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of AI productivity tools. I'm like, oh my God, I love this.
Yeah.
Where was my life before ChatGPT? Um, and it definitely makes me more effective, but I am aware of when it spits something back to me.
Yes.
Like I'm already, because I work in that world, I'm already looking for its bias.
No.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting time.
No, I totally agree. And I like the way you're saying that, it's at the same starting point. So
Yeah.
we haven't lost anything. And good
Yeah.
we're recognizing that at this point in time. So I'm sure there'll be
I
some
want
improvement.
companies to recognise it. As
Yes.
companies go on their AI journey, which we know they're all on, is around, just having that mindset around, does this work for everyone?
Yeah.
Who are the outliers here? Who would this not work for? And they're only going to get that by having that different experience, different voices, different backgrounds in the room. So
Yes. Yes.
that's my big call to action. Anything that you're building, don't build it in an ivory tower.
No, 100% not. And maybe we'll make it happen. We'll amplify
It
that
will.
thought. And I want to pick up on ADHD you were diagnosed with at the age of 49.
Yeah.
And how did that discovery actually reframe your past and at the same time, supercharged you for the vision of future? Because do you believe in neurodivergence, that it actually give you the untapped leadership superpower in the business, which
Do you know, so
you
it's
might
really
utilize
hard.
more?
It's with it, there's a divide, a bit of a division within the kind of, as for whether we use the term superpower. I can only speak from my own lived experience. When I went through the ADHD process that led to the diagnosis, it it did a lot for me because it explained why the fact that I wasn't a naughty kid in school. I just
Mm,
wasn't attentive. I was disruptive. It kind of answered a lot of reasons where I just thought I was naughty and stuff like that, where actually there was a reason for that, some of that behavior.
mm,
There's a reason why I struggle with detail. There is a reason why I can literally flip from project to project to project to project.
mm,
Get excited by something, I go down a rabbit hole with it for days. There is a reason why I can probably fit 3 hours work into 30 minutes when I'm in the mood.
mm,
It explains a lot of things for me, but on the flip side, how I can then be immobilized,
mm,
like whereby I can't physically get the brain processes together to get on and do something. So
yeah,
it has its peaks and troughs. But I say for me, it just helped me to understand myself a little bit better. I've done stuff around We Are the City, making sure we have, neurodiverse panels, focus on ADHD. And it was only through that work that I started to go, oh my God, I recognize myself in some of that.
yeah.
And then was working with a neurodiverse organisation that supports employees and neurodiverse individuals. And they just said to me, why don't you just go through the process and see? So I did. And then obviously it came out at the end of it. And and I say, does it affect me in my day-to-day life? Like I don't medicate for it yet. I do see it sometimes it's very positive. I have positive outcomes, but on the flip side, I have very negative outcomes as well. So I think anything that helps you understand yourself a little bit better can only be a good thing. And as I
Yeah,
say, for me, it stopped me being a little bit more harder on myself than perhaps I was previously.
yeah. I think that helps immensely. So from that, I really want to pick up that what's your biggest failure in the career, which that time, or maybe in your personal life, or maybe that time it felt like catastrophic and um, that everything was ending, but that actually turned out to be a big
So
plus.
many times. Not everything I touch turns to gold. Again, because they're having that kind of mindset. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You fail faster than the average person, but um, there's probably not one thing. I mean, when I first set up We Are the City, we paid some website developers to build a website that turned out to be fraudsters, so that never got done. We probably hired wrong people. I had the wrong accountant, who I quickly kind of got rid of. There were so many, oh my God, my life is over moments, even within losing my first job. That was one of them. Working, really selling my soul in a company as part of my job, thinking there was a promotion at the end of it. I think I talk about this in Hills of Steel, rocking my whole infrastructure, not seeing my kids, not seeing my husband as much as I should. So laser focused on this promotion and what it would mean for us if I got it and as a family. I'm probably selfishly, if I'm honest, what it meant for me at that particular time, not to get it. I remember coming home on the train, crying my eyes out, telling my husband like I didn't get it. It went to the person that was probably as peed off as I was the year before, that they never got promoted. But so there are so many life moments where you think, oh my God, this is terrible. But do you know something? When you look, maybe I say it with older eyes and wiser bones, what is really catastrophic in the world of work? What the things that are catastrophic are people, losing people that you love, or not spending enough time with your family and friends and people that bring you joy. So when I look back at all of those little things that happened, you realize they pale into insignificance in terms of the real things that are catastrophic in our lives. So yeah, you're going to do wrong, you're going to mess up, you're going to make the wrong decisions, you're going to work for the wrong person, you're going to do that, you're going to not do a job as well as that you thought that you would do it. But do you know what? No one's died. That's the way I always look upon it. I think what's most important is that you realize that do your job and do it well, be ambitious, be all that you can be that satisfies your version of success, but at the same time don't lose sight of the people that are around you and those memories that you create with others that are so important, because you just can't get that time back.
Oh, 100%. That just reminds me that in London Business School, we had one exercise where we had to write our own eulogy.
Oh, I saw that recently on Celebrity SAS. I don't know if I could do that.
But the surprising thing was nobody had written about the job or about the money they
No.
made. all you're doing is what you just said. And that really blew my mind because I'm like, what are we chasing everything for? Like at the end of the day when we are
What
going,
really matters, when you boil it down,
yes,
you were given 5 minutes left. You wouldn't talk about your work. No one writes on your gravestone, she was a great program director,
no,
or she was a great CEO. No one cares. It's, so
100%.
I think, sometimes you just got to stop and say, what's important to me, the memories that we make, the people around you, the people that you love. That's what makes us whole as people.
100%. Vanessa, World Economic Forum predicts that the way we are heading towards gender equality, I mean, we're not doing great. So gender equality is 131 years away at the
I
same
know.
pace if we'll continue to grow. Because I think even in the tech, also in your world, a lot of women in the mid-level actually, quit. And therefore, only like 5% of the leadership roles in tech are held by women. So, what is that one thing if you have to just do tomorrow to speed up this particular, gender diversity debate? And if you can do like one thing which can actually change the visibility.
I mean, there's so many angles I could come at it from a society perspective. You've got, eradicating violence against women and girls. You've got curing, poverty for women, educational opportunity. But I think if we want to talk about work, if that's what we're talking about, it's making childcare affordable, making it accessible and valued as part of that critical infrastructure that we have. That if you talk to most people, the cost of childcare is one of the biggest barriers in terms of women's like participation and progression in every single sector. So I think fixing that childcare it's not just a nice to have for women, it will grow the economy. I think we can unlock the potential of millions and millions of women and reduce career breaks. We can stall progression. We can get the women back into the workplace, and women want to work, right? So,
Of
but
course.
it's the cost of childcare, and I think that stems from the government. They've made some strides in the last few years, but it's still not enough.
And you advise governments, and I'm sure uh, people like you can actually put that seed into their minds, and then ultimately we can see.
There are some amazing people out there that do it far better than me. You've got, there's people like Pregnant and Screwed, Jolie Brearley, who's been campaigning and lobbying the government. You've got Anna Whitehouse, who pushes the government around flexible working, not just for women, but for men. So you've got some real, you've got Elliot Ray that talks about parenting out loud. There are some absolutely incredible campaigners in that space who literally sit outside of Westminster every single day
Wow.
pushing this agenda forward, and they're incredible role models and individuals. But that is, as I say, that's still something that we need to change because, but even for some women, in terms of earnings, pay gap, and things like that, it just makes no sense to pay for childcare and go to work for what you've got left. Bring in the
100%.
fact that you're leaving your children anyway. So
Yes.
it's like, yeah, it's a big conundrum, and it's one that we need to solve, but it takes governments.
Oh, yes. And I want to pick up on the most amazing part of your story. I think one of the most amazing part of your story is receiving an OBE. That is such an extraordinary recognition. So can you take us back to that moment when the first time you
Oh,
heard the news, and how was it to actually receive that award from Prince Charles and or King Charles? If you can just tell us how
so
that.
I was in the car. I was in the middle of moving house, and my post was redirected to my mum's. So I
Okay.
was in the car with the kids in the back of the car, and my mum rang me and she said, "You've got a brown envelope here from the Cabinet Office." And I'd done an honours nomination for somebody else. I'd written
Okay.
their pack and stuff like that. So I said, "Oh, it's probably just a reference number
Uh-huh.
for the honours nomination for blah blah blah," who did go on to get an honour, by the way. Um, and so anyway, shall I open it? I said, "Yeah, it's fine, just open it." So she opened it and she was like, in a very wide Cockney accent, I won't actually repeat the word that she said, but she's like, "Oh my, whatever, you've got an OBE." And I was like, "What?" Like, and it almost like crashed the car. The kids are like, "Oh my God, mum's got an OBE." And then kind of looked at each other and went, "What's an OBE?" Like there was any. So like I just state of shock really. I mean, I know now who nominated me and who wrote letters because they gave me a copy of all the letters that were wrote. And this was just, I mean, the OBE was 2017, so it was long before We Are Tech Women came about. It was never reflected the work that we did in India. So there was like, so this was like really early stages. So For me, it's a platform to do more. I think your question of what that was like from my beginnings, to take my dad into Buckingham Palace to get recognition for helping other people made them very, very proud. For us to sit there as a family and go, oh my God, we're in Buckingham Palace,
I know.
to take my kids who know how many years and hard both me and my husband have worked on We Are the City, for them to see that if you work hard for something,
Yes, yes.
it can turn into something. So there was a little nod of acknowledgement between me and my husband, like, all that hard work, like,
I know.
now we've got something that can propel us even more in terms of what we want to do, like to help women. So yeah, it was magical. And I still look at the photos and stuff like that. It was an absolutely incredible day. But as with all these things, when you get given a gift, to me, that you give gifts. So I'm forever doing nominations for other people, and I've had quite a few successes. I'm quite good at penning an honours nomination now, and I love it
That's
because
amazing.
there are
That's
so many
amazing.
amazing people that do incredible things, and sometimes you just got to take the moment to go, do you know what? I'm going to go and do that for that person because they're incredible and they're changing the narrative, and they deserve the recognition.
Yeah, I got full body chills when you were talking about it because it just made me feel so proud that I'm talking to you. And yes, it's a small recognition for you in your entire journey, but that opens so many other doors and maybe, amplifies voices, and then people can aspire also. I did not know what OB or how you achieve it till I started,
Yeah,
reading about you. And that made me wonder that can I also aspire to be,
of course.
and imagine, so that, I mean, that, three-letter word next to your name made me, think or wonder that, okay, I can also do it. So that itself is a huge, huge
That's it.
achievement. Um, but I want to ask you, is there one piece of advice if you want to give to all the women, young women who are actually listening today, could be in tech or finance or wherever, what is the one piece of advice you would give it to everyone?
So I think from a career perspective, it's got to be networking, right? Around growing your network. So it's really easy for me to throw that word across to you, and most people hate it. So let me break it down. I think it's about building connections with people and you know, being clear about what those connections are, not just going making connections because they're going to elevate you somewhere, but about fostering relationships with other people over periods of time, that you get to know them. Can you help them? And then, I think that for me is the most important thing, because everything I've ever achieved, even things I do today, if I'm putting on a One Tech World conference or I'm doing Women in Tech Week, which happens in October, all of that is happening. Yeah, it might have been my idea, but it's happening because of my network. They're
Mm,
all brought in, they're all people that I know or people that I've met through other people. So that fundamentally building your network is, for me, the most important thing you can do in any organization. Go to as many events as you can internally. It doesn't even matter if it's not within your line of work. Meet people, listen, be curious. Work out how you connect with them on LinkedIn. Work out how one day maybe you can help them. If you build a long enough relationship, maybe they can help you. Mentorship turns into sponsorship when people see what you can achieve and they're willing to put their integrity on the line for you. But it all starts with people. So I'd say that is, from a work perspective, again, remaining curious. Look, not just being in the job that you're in, but looking ahead. What is the job that I want? What would network look like around that job? Can I start building that now? What skills do I need to learn? Is there a pocket of education that I need to go and fill? So looking at yourself almost like a business, and I talk about this a lot, like a micro business within a big macro business. How do I grow that business? How do I grow myself? So that would what I'd say around kind of from a career perspective. I think from a life perspective, who am I to give life advice? But I think it goes back to what I said before, be good at your job, be ambitious, but make sure you take time for yourself as well. I think that's really important.
that's very healthy. And also I think network is net worth, right? Who you know
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
is more important than what you know. And I did not do that very early on in my
What
career.
did I?
I have Yeah, because no one told me, and I thought, oh, why would I take back a home with, people who I work with and those sort of things. But then you eventually realize that it's so important, especially when you're a woman, because there are very handful of women, and you have to look for male allyship. And,
Yeah.
how can someone be a sponsor, not just a mentor? So I think on that note, I just want to ask you one last question. You've built platforms for like 120,000 women, which is incredible. You've written bestseller book. You have received an OBE and even like an honorary doctorate. Like, wow. So after achieving all of these and making the impact, what is next for Vanessa? And where are you investing your energy and focus at this point in time?
So I've just released a piece of research that identifies the financial gap or the economic impact of not developing women in tech. So that sits between 2 and 3.5 billion. So that is my big thing at the moment is, again, in line with the AI conversation that we had earlier on, we have to have all seats at the table and women included within
Yeah.
those seats. So pushing that report, getting that in front of government, making it a fundamental part of Women in Tech Week, getting corporates to read that, getting women to know that they're part of that story, getting more women into tech. I think I'm equally passionate about that. I need to write another book. Hills of Steel is probably 11, almost 12 years old now. So,
Okay.
and every year I'm like, I'm going to write my next book. And then I get too busy and it doesn't happen. So next year, and I'm putting it out there now, I'm going to start writing the book. So there'd be another book. I think that's equally important to me. And I think probably the transition over the next few years is I would love to, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm super passionate about kids that grew up in circumstances like I've done. And I've helped some people with their social mobility programs and things like that. But I really would like to do something bigger in that space. So I think, that would fulfill me. And then I suppose one day, you know, retire and go and do all the other things that I love, like gardening and traveling and being with my dogs and watching my children grow up.
Oh, I love that. And on that note, I want to let you go, but before I let you go, I'm just going to ask some rapid fire questions.
Yeah, let's
Whatever
do
comes
it.
to your mind, just bring it on. If you meet 16 years old Vanessa today, what would you tell her?
You're enough.
Love that. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Go network.
Yes. Is there a book profoundly inspired you, which everyone should read?
Caroline Corrado, Invisible Women.
Yes. Actually, someone else also recommended that.
Yeah, love that one.
What's your go-to self-care routine?
Walking in nature.
Which woman, past or present, inspires you the most?
Dame Stephanie Shirley. She was a tech pioneer. She passed away about a couple of weeks ago, but read her story. She's absolutely incredible.
Really? Okay, I'm going to mention that in the post. Where do you turn for your daily dose of knowledge and inspiration? Any reads, podcasts, shows you watch?
I mean, sometimes you have to separate your day job from the things that you listen to outside. So sometimes I will deliberately listen to things that are nothing to do with gender equality or things like that. I love kind of podcasts that are real life stories or people that have kind of changed the world. But equally, I like silly things as well. So sometimes, I like podcasts that make me laugh. I like the podcast authors like Louis Theroux. I like Paul Brunson. I might listen to Stephen Bartlett's if it's someone that I'm interested in. But yeah, that tends to be the ones. But sometimes I just listen to like, may not even necessarily be a famous one, but I think they're funny. So The Guilty Feminist is a good one. That's obviously my line of work. Um, there's one by a lady called Viv Grossop. The name escapes me. But her one's really good as well.
Okay. Any other network or community you actually advise women to join apart from
So,
Women?
well, obviously, we are the city and we are tech women. But there's loads. I mean, in terms of, ones that do kind of women in business, there's We Are Novi, that's run by Griselda. You've got Kajigo, which is run by Rav. They do like accelerator programs for women. That's a great community as well. Oh my God, there's about 50 on We Are the City that are listed in our networks directory. But there's so many where you can go
Yes.
and kind of, find. other women that are in your industry where you can learn new things. But I think those are, they're the ones that obviously spring to mind.
And how does someone actually join via the city? Just go on the
You
website?
just sign up and just you sign up as members. Doesn't cost you anything. Just means we're going to drop you a newsletter and we're going to tell you not just what we're doing, but other things that we may think will be interesting to you. I mean, anyone at any time that wanted advice, they can go on. I think there's a chat on the website, but they can email into us at info about, I'm looking for a network. Does this? Do you know anyone? We see so much. So always happy to answer advice from everyone. And obviously we run ad hoc events. We've got our awards that happen. Rising Stars opens in January. Look out for that. We're just about to announce our Tech Women 100 shortlist. So we do listings, we do awards, we do ad hoc events, but also we're promoting what everyone else is doing as well. So, do have a look out for that.
Will do, will do. What one skill or habit has been a game changer in your personal or professional life?
Being authentic.
If you had a magic wand, what is the one thing you would change in the corporate culture today?
Clear and transparent pathways for progression so that everyone knows where they stand, everyone knows what pathway they're on, no hidden promotions, transparency around what opportunities are there. If they could get that right, we'd see much more fluid pathway for women into leadership.
Yes, and last but not least, 10 years down the line, when I Google search Vanessa Vallely OBE, what do you want the first headline to be?
She said she would and she did.
Oh my God, I love that. So on that note, Vanessa, thank you so much for sharing your journey,
Thank
your
you for having me.
unapologetic drive, and the fierce energy which inspires us all. I really can continue talking like for hours with you. And I genuinely believe that, the second book when you'll write, we'll again be talking. But you have shown us the leadership isn't the measure of title or accolades. It's actually defined by impact, courage, and relentless pursuit to have a real change. And you have also shattered the glass ceilings, build bridges so that others can also rise alongside you, and laying the foundation that allows us to be taller together. So all the listeners, please do not wait for opportunities to knock on the door. Just kick that door down, create your own, and don't just network, but also build your empire. And most importantly, have the audacity to believe that you can actually make the change, just like Vanessa, because you are a force, and so is she, and so all of us. So this isn't just the podcast, it's a global sisterhood, a virtual power circle, and a high five in the space where we can embrace together with strength and power. So until next time, keep daring, keep growing, and stay powerful. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to You Are a Force. Hit subscribe and join us next week for more powerful stories from women rewriting the rules. Until then, keep building, keep leading, and remember, you are a force.